Hello everyone, I am Antara, one of the overall coordinators of the Robotics Summer Camp 2021. Along with me, the other coordinators are Nirant Bhaiya, Lokesh Bhaiya, Dinesh Bhaiya, Payal and Karan. We welcome you all to Phase 2 preview of the camp. With week 2 completed of the foundational track of the camp, it is important for you to now know and understand the various subdomains of robotics. We are providing you with 4 specialization tracks that cover robotics as a field. Next slide, Raghav. Though the fundamentals of all of these were and are being provided in phase 1, mastering a few of these specializations will enable you to work on interesting projects in future. Robotics is an interdisciplinary and vast field. Hence, projects in such fields can be achieved only when people of different specializations come together and form a team. You will be asked to select one or more specialization based on your interest. You can select more than one tracks, but please keep in mind you will be awarded a specialization only if you are able to complete all the requirements pertaining to the track. But before selection, you need to know what all are the tracks all about. This is why we have organized this meet where the mentors from each track will one by one walk you through the structure of the track and tell you what all you will learn. Before we begin, there are certain announcements. Throughout the session, all participants will be kept muted. We will unmute you after all the talks are done for the interactive session with the mentors. In between, if you have any doubts, you can write it in the chat box and we will try answering them. So let's begin with the first specialization track of dynamics and control. The respective mentors for this track are Karthik, Pranav, Raghav and Yatharth. Over to you, Raghav.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm one of the mentors of Dynamics and Control track. So we'll begin, and I'll begin with by asking you a question. What is a robot? What do you think a robot is? What defines it? So yeah, as you all are muted, I'll just go ahead and give you a brief definition. So a robot is a machine, an autonomous machine that can carry out some complex series of tasks. And what is the difference between a computer and a robot, you say? Well, a computer does not interact it with the physical environment around it. A robot can manipulate and interact with the physical environment around it, and it is a much needed feature of the robot. So sadly, our robots are not like Baby Yoda. They don't have telekinesis to manipulate the environment without moving. They need some kind of movement to manipulate the environment around them. Our robots need to move. Movement is an intrinsic part of every robot. So control is basically a system of some sensors, some actuations, some actuators, and some algorithms that controls the movement of a robot, that makes the movement possible for a robot. And you ask me why control is important. Does it really matter? So basically, first we get the information about the dynamics of the system, which we'll talk about in a while. So these are some scary mathematical equations. Then we put them in a control system, which is usually a closed loop. We will cover only the closed loop control systems. And boom, you get all these possibilities. You want to make a quadruped walk or dance, you have control. You want to make a biped run, you do it with the help of control. You move an robotic arm which can carry industrial and day-to-day tasks, it is happened with the control. You want to control your drone, make it autonomous, make it deliver goods autonomously and fly autonomously, you have control. You want a humanoid which can manipulate the environment and interact with humans, you have control. You want an autonomous vehicle which can steer itself, there is some element of control in that too. You are awestruck by the self-landing boosters of SpaceX, they also use control algorithms to make it possible. The International Space Station to do small maneuvers uses control, and the autonomous rovers, Mars rovers maybe or lunar rovers, they all use control in some form so that make their movements possible. So yeah, it's pretty damn important to learn control. So yeah, if you have good knowledge of control, then you can make your robots do amazing things, as you can see on the left. And without controls, your robot is just a chunk of metal, some chunk of metal and algorithms, and it can't achieve much without controls. So what are dynamics, you ask? Well, The dynamics tell you about the relation between the forces which are acting on the system, internal and external, and their effect on the system. What acceleration they will cause, how your system will move due to them, what position will change, how velocity will change, and to control something, you should know how it will move. So that's why dynamics tell you how it will move. Control handles your movements. So dynamics and controls go hand in hand. They go together. For example, there is a stick which is like installed in a cart with a hinge. So you want to move cart to keep the stick upward. Now, how will you learn that? You'll control the movement with the help of control, but before that, you need to figure out the dynamics of the system. And the dynamics of the system are usually, figured out with then basically with the Newton's law, you can say, but in the advanced form, they use Euler and Lagrange equations to do that. We use those equations to do that, and different methods to do that to form a model of the system using the dynamics of it. So we'll just take a brief look at what are the types of control. We have, and from there are various way to distribute categorize control in different forms, but we'll follow one method in which there are two types of mainly controls: model based controls and model free controls. Models mean the dynamics of the system. A control which can control your system by knowing the dynamics of it are the model based controls, and the controls system which can control the robot or the system without knowing its model, without knowing its dynamics, are the model free control. So LQR and MPC are some examples of model based control, and PID and reinforcement learning are some examples of model free control. So here is some examples of model-free control. Your pipettes like Cassie use reinforcement learning to learn various tricks, model-free. Your robotics arm usually use PID control to track their trajectories, and your autonomous vehicles also uses some form of PID to steer their trajectories. Here are some examples of model-based control. We have biped Atlas from Boston Dynamics. It uses some form of MPC to control its movements. We have self-landing boosters of SpaceX. They use a control algorithm named as G-Fold for the maneuver. And we have MIT Cheetah Mini, which also uses some form of simplified MPC to control its movements. Now, what is the work done by our club currently in this domain is, first there was Gerbot, which was developed for Inter IT Tech Meet 2019 by our seniors, Lokesh Bhaiya and Niran Bhaiya and Nishan Bhaiya, and it was the first iteration of it. Then we are continuing it this year also under their guidance. That would be the second iteration. In the first iteration, we were able to walk it in simulation, but did not achieve any hardware results. But yeah, this year soon we'll get some hardware results and we'll make our own IIT BHU Robotics Club Gerbot walk. And so most importantly, how are controls done? And if you're interested to know that, join us for the track and we'll guide you through it. But we do have a sneak peek for you. Throughout the track which we'll be following, we'll focus on solving a self-balancing robot on two wheels, which will be able to move and do certain tasks and do certain stunts. So if you want to learn that using model-based control, feel free to join us. So if you are interested in learning control, we want you here in our track. So we'll be looking forward to having you with us. Thank you.
So next we have hardware designing and simulation. The corresponding mentors for this track are Raman Raj and Surabhit Gupta. So I will hand it over to Surabhit. Surabhit?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Payal. I I am Surprit from the mechanical design and hardware specialization. As you might have already guessed by now, hardware designing and mechanical designing is the first step behind making any robot.
Shurabit, you are not present slide.
What can you see?
Like the slides are not visible.
Yeah, now is it visible?
No.
Yeah, so Robert, do you want me to present your slides for you?
Yeah, man, try once.
You just stop sharing, I'll try. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
So Robert, you can go ahead.
Okay, next slide, Raghav. So you already must have had a very basic introductions to making UIDFs manually. As you might have already noticed in the camp so far that making UIDFs manually is a cumbersome process, and the shapes that you can get out of it are very primitive geometric shapes without much regard for real world performance like frictions or tolerances or the inertia of them. But as opposed to that, making your model in CAD, especially SolidWorks, is a lot more effective process. You can not only you can not only make more complex shapes and geometries, but you can also study how it will work together as an assembly using motion studies or the tolerances between different components or the ease of manufacturing, machinability, 3D printability, etc. Unlike UIDS, where you can only simulate a 3D model of the robot, in CAD you can also simulate things like the stress, the fatigue. Fatigue is a special kind of stress which is related to the cyclic loading, thermal behavior of the robot so that it does not heat and cause errors, and the circuital behaviors all can be simulated. Previous slide. So these are two images of thermal analysis of a circuit. On the right hand side, you can see the airflow in a in a heated circuit, and on the left side, you could see a circuit which was built to fit within a certain frame. So it was better that you design the entire PCB inside SolidWorks itself, so that when you actually build the PCB, there are no issues with it being seated properly in the frame. Next slide. So here you can see two brackets. Right hand side is a simple stress study which can show you how, if your bracket is strong enough to withstand whatever load you have designed it to withstand. On the left hand side is a more complex bracket which is required to withstand cyclic loadings. So as you can see in this image, certain parts of this bracket are likely to fail at 600 million cycles, while other parts are more likely to stand up to a billion cycles. So these are the kinds of studies you can do in SolidWorks so that your robot can be a durable machine. Next slide. So by manufacturing your robot anytime, it is always advisable to have a CAD model in hand. Certain manufacturing techniques like CNC machining and 3D printing will require you to have a CAD model. And 3D printing is a great tool for lightweighting and reducing the inertia of your robot so that the load on actuators is reduced. And it is far easier to fix faults in the designing stage rather than in the hardware, which can be time consuming as well as expensive. And you can optimize the robot for cost, weight, number of components, machinability, the cost effectiveness, etc. Next slide. So on here you can see two quadruped robots. The one of them is the one which you must have made in the bonus task of week 1, a quadruped robot built manually using UIDF. And on the other hand, you can see a lot more detailed and version of a quadruped built in the SolidWorks. So it is far easier for you to perform studies and even the simulation becomes more easier with a more detailed model. Next slide. So here you can see two iterations of Boston Dynamics bipedal robot. All the software parts of there is only an incremental improvement in the software from this on the left version from the last decade and the current version from on the current and recent version. They run mostly the similar software and the learning systems, but you can see there is a drastic difference in the hardware design of these two robots. On the left hand side, the bot is tether and it is able to perform a little more basic functions like walking and climbing stairs. But on the right hand side, the bot is fully self-sustaining and it does not require any external support, and it can perform more complex maneuvers like a backflip. Next slide. Hardware is often the bottleneck in your robot. These are some designs that were made by us using SolidWorks this year. Next slide. This is, as Ragha already showed, this is Gerbot Beta, the hardware for which we designed by ourselves. It is a servo-driven bipedal robot. And on the bottom side, you can see IOTA, which is a cluster of bots which are designed to dock together. As you can see in the right-hand side top image, there can be a very subtle curve in the lower leg because of certain studies that we did in SolidWorks for better stability of the bot. So this kind of freedom is given to you in CAD softwares. And when you have finally got a CAD model ready, you can export it as a UIDF for further studies in Pipelet. Next slide. This is a stress analysis that we conducted on a part for Gerbot. So this is a static loading where two parts of the leg are supposed to interact together, and one of the leg would undergo a very controlled form of deformation. So we were checking if this deformation would cause any plastic strain in the bot. Next slide. One exciting part of designing that we will cover in brief would be generative design, wherein conventional design you create a design from scratch and you end it. In generative design, what you do is you create a design and put in some constraints, some loads, and then the software would automatically explore the design space for optimizations that it can make to your original design while still staying within the constraints. The software only explores the design space. It does not still generate a design of its own, so it cannot be called a truly intelligent design. It is more like a design optimization. On the next slide, you will see a chassis for a quadcopter, which needs to have 4 propellers, as lightweight as possible and as aerodynamically efficient as possible. So next slide. This is how it was optimized by the software. Next slide. As you must have already seen in the document that was sent to you in the beginning of the summer camp, we will explore these parts of designing. Hope you liked it and look forward to seeing you in the specialization. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Fine. So, hello everyone, my name is Yash and I will be introducing you to the specialization robot learning, and the mentors of the specialization are me along with Ayush Kumar Shaw and Vikhyat Venkatraman. So, we'll be, mentoring you on this specialization robot learning. So, what exactly is robot learning? Robot learning is making robots learn. And learn what? Basically, any task, from a simple task such as making a car or a husky move forward to very difficult tasks such as making quadrupeds or bipeds work. You can do all sorts of things using robot learning. Now, how is this different from the classical method? So, by classical methods, what I mean is what Raghav discussed as control and dynamics, or what Somnath will be discussing later on in ROS and planning. So, a lot of roboticists right now are moving to robot learning instead of classical methods. And what exactly are classical methods? Classical methods are, for example, in controls and dynamics, as you saw, there are a lot of mathematical equations and stuff, right? So, first solving those equations, getting those results, and then those plugging those into your controller and stuff like that, and finally being able to solve the problem. That all things are called classical methods, and those are proper defined algorithms or techniques. But in robot learning, what we try to do is try to explore new things and try to make the robot learn on its own new behaviors and stuff. But I'm not saying that classical methods need be fully done away with, but like you need some knowledge of classical methods to efficiently use robot learning. So that is why you were introduced to all these things, like the basics of all these things in these 3 weeks of the first part of the camp. So the question does arise that when you have controls and dynamics and stuff, then why go for robot learning? Why not use classical methods only? So first of all, everything is not as simple as the husky robot that you would have worked with, right? There are lots of joints and motors in complex robots, and as Suravit showed you, like the very quadruped that was made in SolidWorks. So those things have a lot of joints, and if you see here on the right side, there is a robotic arm. So this will also have a lot of joints, motors, and you need a and to control all these, or even for example planning algorithms, you need a lot of things to do in order to control it using classical methods, like using Lagrangian equations for controlling it, and these are long mathematical equations which you might have to solve fully and stuff. So robot learning can be used as a black box which helps in increasing the robustness and efficiency of the robot, by making it learn on its own. So that is why we use robot learning, and what it helps also is it helps in increasing the robustness and efficiency of the robot, and go where no classical method can go, or like go in places where classical methods can't reach right now. For example, there might be situations where there are a lot of perturbations in the environment, so a lot of noise in the environment, like friction changes or any noise for that matter. So that you can use robot learning to negate that problem, and help in solving that problem. So this is basically Google X. So Google X was a part of Google. Right now, it is under Apple. Not Apple, sorry, Alphabet. So yeah, so it basically used robot learning for manipulation using vision. So it used its camera system as vision, and it carried out manipulation using robot learning. So this was their system. Now, what can we do? So what are the tasks that we can do using robot learning? So we can do a lot of tasks. For example, walking on unseen terrains, like walking, be it whatever thing, like for example, quadruped, bipeds, anything. or making robots learn how to work alongside humans and adapt, right? Or for example, dive underwater to retrieve things or solving mazes. So there are a lot of things in controls, plannings, and everything. We can do like robot learning. So what exactly is robot learning? So it is, as I said, it is a method to accomplish a task. But how do we do that? So we do that by trial and error. So you try out things, and obviously you fail initially, but slowly you start to understand what is the best method to achieve that or solve that goal, like task, and then you are able to finally complete, finally solve that task. So this is the thing, but it is not random search. So don't think of it as random trial and error. It is sort of a guided trial and error where you try out different things, and as you try out different things, you get to know which type of actions you need to try out, right? So now as you start to understand which type of actions to try out, then you certainly start accelerating a process and start getting to the optimal solution. So for example, on the right, you can see that this is a biped which is trying to walk over the hurdles or the walls, you can say. So it initially fails, like it tries to jump over the walls, but it isn't able to. But after a few tries, it is able to. So this is basically the concept of robot learning, and it is very similar to the concept of how a baby learns to walk. So or an infant learns to walk. So it will try to walk initially. It will fail a lot of times, but then finally it will be able to walk after getting to try a couple of times. So this is what robot learning is. And if I put it more formally, it is data driven decision making for robots. So we make decisions for robots based on the data collected. Now this data can be from simulation, from anywhere, or from like data collected from other robots or some stuff like that. So this is data driven decision making for robots, and that is what we call robot learning. So these are some cool applications in robotics. For example, on the left, you can see that there is this quadruped called Animal, which is being trained to, stand up on its legs again, even after it's fallen. And on the right, this is a like self-balancing two-wheeled bot. So, like Raghav also showed this. So this can be done using normal controls and dynamics also, but here it is shown using, robot learning. So yeah. So you can see here it slowly, it fails initially and it isn't able to self-balance itself. But as time goes on, it learns, okay, I need to, do better. And now you can see it is able to self-balance itself. So over time, it gets better and better, and slowly it is able to finally self-balance itself. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with this. So I'll move to the next slide. So this is also another use case of robot learning where the pancake is being flipped by this robot, right? So now that I come to what all exactly is has been done by our robotics club in this field. So I would say a lot of things have been done, like the RoboRx side. Like there is a thing called as Robotics Research Group. You can look up there. So most of the projects there are based on robot learning. And as Raghav and Surabit already showed, Jarbot. So Jarbot was the biped that our seniors Lokesh Bhai, Niran Bhai, and Nishan Bhai made. So its first version was fully based on like robot learning only. So and which they presented in entirety. So that's pretty cool, and we are all also shifting to newer projects. So it would be great if you join us. And so the icing on the cake is Pybullet. So we run a large number of simulations to collect an insane amount of data. We can do this because if you see the use case of Pybullet was to help you bring everything to simulation right now, so that you can work on simulated robots and test your algorithms and stuff there. Because if you try to test out your new algorithms and stuff in real hardware, then it would be very costly and it would damage your hardware a lot, and that is what we don't want. So we use simulations to collect an insane amount of data. And obviously you have seen that you can fasten up the simulations as well. You can increase the speed of the simulations if you don't put that time.sleep and stuff, or use p.direct instead of the GUI version. So you can do this and you can collect an insane amount of data, and on that data you can use to train your model to make it learn things, right? And yeah, so what the future might hold. So we are very excited, and robot learning's possibilities are endless. So you can, and we hope that you join us and do cool stuff, interesting stuff, and that we can can present as a work in our club. So what exactly will be the specialization structure? So as mentioned in the initial part also, we'll have 3 parts. Basically, it will be starting off with data-driven methods and stuff and basic intro. Then we'll, in part 2 and part 3, we'll be introducing you to 2 different algorithms and training robots with those algorithms. So this will be basically a specialization structure and prerequisites. So for the specialization, there are some prerequisites like deep learning and neural networks, but it is not completely necessary to have a grip on these subjects, because what we'll be using is we won't be building such deep learning models and neural network models on our own. So you don't have to worry about it, because whatever we do, we can do it without neural networks also. It's just that we be doing it with the help of neural networks. So, and it not much information is required even if you don't know, but yeah. So I said, yeah. Thank you.
So next we have Team Ross, and the respective mentors are Aman, Vishwas, Somnath and Manak. Over to you, Somnath.
Yeah. Hello everyone. I'm Somnath on behalf of Team Ross. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So, hello everyone. So, I'm going to be explaining what ROS is, so that you can get interested and may join our specialization for phase 2. So, in my team, we have Aman, Mainak, me, and Vishwas. So let's get started in what ROS is. So ROS is a set of tools that every robotist ever need. So you have all of them within one single package, so that you can directly use them. So you will be able to run any kind of simulation, any kind of control algorithm, or any kind of planning algorithm that you want. So let me just explain a few components in ROS. One is mapping. It's pretty obvious that you can map the world. Basically, a robot doesn't have eyes. It has cameras and a limited field of view. So it can see the world, it can map it, it can learn about the world, but by just using vision sensors. The next one is planning. As you can see the robot down, it is trying to move around these boxes without colliding. So this is some kind of planning, which is very much needed in our day-to-day life. This can be scaled up to higher levels, maybe in quadrupeds and even quadcopters. So there's no limits to this. The other components are a simulator. So the major fallback, major problem that you would be facing is to use a new simulator, that is Gazebo. I believe most of you have learned PyBullets till now, and now you got to shift to Gazebo. So it's a new simulator, but it has a lot of functions. And then using the simulator, it enables you to do a lot of things. I believe till now you would have controlled 2R joins and made basic structures which are called open loop kinematics. Gazebo helps you do much more. It can help you do closed loop designs and help you control them very easily. Other components being RViz, the most important one, because it helps you visualize the robot. I believe these are some things that you don't find in PyBullets, because here you can visualize how your robot is behaving, what is the trajectory of your hand and stuff like that, which doesn't directly come in PyBullets. And the other most important part is embedded support. Basically, you can directly control your microcontrollers, Raspberry Pis, everything using ROS with few lines of code. There's even OpenAI Gym, as Yash did explain. OpenAI Gym is something that helps you run simulations and get a lot of data for your reinforcement learning algorithms or the robot learning algorithms. So that is also included in the ROS package. But why am I really boring you with all of this? You have enough assignments from your professors, and there are enough tracks for all of you to do something. And moreover, they are in PyBullet. So why do this extra thing? Why should I frustrate you? Basically, the idea is next time you want to flip a bottle using a robot, you would not have to go deep into the mathematics of the control of the system or the dynamics of the system yourself, or you don't have to code the whole policy to learn them in a model-free fashion, but rather just install a simple package. The main idea or the main benefit of ROS is there is a big community of people who have done the work previously. most of us don't really reinvent the wheel. So most of the code is available online, but just we are unaware of it. ROS just helps us get that into our projects directly. It's as simple as writing down that one line of code, one line of command to fetch that package. It is just here it's just the ROS package, but let's say you want to control the hand, it's just ROS hand control package. So you just do that and your work is done. So you don't really have to go through the suffering of other package or other code or the theory for now for a simple implementation. The other thing ROS helps you is many of time we overlook the limitations we have in a simulator. So in the left, you can see a board, which works totally fine. It does stand up on two wheels, but in the real world, that's not how it looks. It looks much different. There are a lot of things that you have to add in. Surely a microcontroller, surely a battery, and even let's say other sensors which help you work fine, right? But there are much more things like encoders or low pass filters and stuff like that, which help you get through this loss, the friction or the losses while counting for the rotation of the wheel and many things like that. That doesn't occur in a simulator because simulator is accurate. The real world sensors are not. So that whole path to follow is very much eased by ROS. So here are some cool projects that I have done. And the fun fact is, I've done them in less than 100 lines of code by just using ROS. So this is the level of ease that ROS gives you to make a new project. Basically, what I mean is ROS is an industry grade software. It's not only used in these small projects, but Tesla or their autonomous car or quadrupeds from MIT, all of them have ROS in them. This helps them work a lot efficiently, and it helps them get code or the state of the art algorithms from other universities or other researchers very easily into their projects. So that is the main idea, that you don't have to really do all of it. You don't have to do, because in a robotic system, you have control, you have perception, you have a lot of things running in tandem. But writing the code for all of them would be a project for 3 years. But that is not what we want you to do. We want you to just focus on the part you want to and just implement the code of that side, and the remaining else you can use through packages that are available online. So basically, ROS helps you go from Jamboard to circuit board in no time. And this is one example as such, wherein we just get an idea of them. We bring in a lot of packages and we try simulation, and even ROS has hardware support. So it's very easy to get that simulation running on hardware. So I would really hope to see all of your projects come alive. Surely this is a batch of this is the COVID batch, and I know you're not you don't have hands-on experience with a lot of hardware. But let's say if you do it in ROS, then there is high amount of probability that you will get them implemented in hardware. Whereas the other way around, let's say you do it in PyBullets and then try to get it here, there are going to be a lot of losses, a lot of problems that you will be facing. So that is all from my side. I would like to see your projects also come alive using ROS, and hope to see you in the ROS specialization.
Okay, thanks a lot, Somnath. Am I audible? Can anyone verify it for me?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, thanks. So, hi everyone, I'm Lokesh Krishna. For those who don't know me, I'm from Part 3 and one of the organizers of this camp. So, to begin with, thanks a lot for all the mentors who put up this, very good presentation for you people. So, and then also thanks for all the attendees who, had patience, and we had a lot of network issues and glitches, but yeah, this is the problem that, it's inevitable in this online mode. So thanks a lot for all of that. So one thing we like to add, so with me I have Niranth here, the secretary of the club, and from Part 3 again. So one thing we'd like to add as the takeaway lesson from this presentation is that robotics is vast. It is simply, like there are a lot of subdomains, and when you call a person a roboticist, or you say that, okay, I do robotics and this is what I do, then it essentially means you are doing one of these three things. So be it you are doing a very good software integration, or let's say you're doing hardware design, or let's say you are into controls, or let's say you are doing the planning part, right? Simply it's infeasible for a single person to be mastering all of this. And in fact, even if you see all the work that is shared by your awesome seniors here, so all of this was in fact done by them. So you see Gerbot, or you see the projects in Robota. So every separate specialization that you are seeing people teaching to you have projects that these people are working on, and those people have specialized it in their period, right? And definitely if you take a single project, right, it doesn't come from a single specialization, and it requires expertise from different domains. So for example, a person from controls and dynamics, they can do really cool stuff in a very controlled fashion, like in the sense they can do very hardware intensive maneuverability, or hardware intensive like robot tasks, right? And whereas you see hardware design, of course, without hardware, there is no notion of a robot here. So that person will make a robot. And let's say there is a person from robot learning, he will have a single algorithm to solve any part of the problem. So let's say there is a classical pipeline and there is a small issue, this person can solve it, right? And then there's only one generalized algorithm, and they can deploy it at any for any platform. And finally, we have ROS for seamless integration and implementation, right? So these have these separate specializations have their own aspect or contribution in robotics, which is indispensable. So only when people from different specialization come together can we make all these brilliant projects that your seniors have been up to in the past, right? So on that note, I'm happy to see you people in numbers in the different specializations, and probably these mentors are also up to giving you a good challenge, and with the same zeal that we are seeing in the participation that we are seeing in phase 1, we'd be happy to continue with phase 2 also. So I guess probably we can stop the recording, Karan. So now it's just an interaction.